I believe there we go. Yeah, we're recording. The marvelous scrumtrelescent Adam Carter, a longtime friend of mine from the Hamilton music scene. You're a jack of all trades, really.
Jack.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a vocalist and multi-instrumentalist for many years. You've got the project going with the Human Race, obviously. You've got Melodic Pixel, which is your videography and doing all kinds of video editing and recording and stuff for people. And then there's also been a lot of the promoting. You know, we were always working together, and
that's how I met you.
Yeah, that's, you know, playing shows and getting us booked in places and doing a lot of legwork, and that was a big reason why you were on the list, not just because I love that sweet face of yours, but because there's so many things that you've had your fingers in, and so that gives you a very broad understanding of a lot of aspects of doing things that I feel like people just completely miss out on. You opened my eyes to a lot of things from working with you and talking with you and everything. And it was really like, oh, like, that's so simple. I can't believe I haven't thought of that, you know, but yeah, it's good to have you here and chat with you. And I guess a good place to start would be the beginning. What were your musical inspirations? Like, do you have that aha moment where you were like, oh, I have to be a musician?
I grew up, my parents are 20 years older than me. So I grew up, I was born in 82, and my dad had a vinyl collection, and I was listening to old Genesis, Rush, King Crimson, and probably when I was 6 years old, my dad taught me how to dub the cassette tape from the vinyl.
The mixtape master.
And I'll tell you this, to this day, it sticks with me. Boston, that first Boston album I dubbed, and the needle skipped right at the of like the single, and it like replayed that riff like 3 times on my recording. So to this day, when I hear that song on the radio, it sounds wrong to me. So many times. So yeah, my parents were not musicians, but they exposed me to so much. The first concert I ever saw was 91. Yes did the Union tour. Ooh. And that was like, okay, kids, we're going to go to the concert. I'm 9 years old. And right. So I was really blessed in that regard, but it was high school. It was probably the same as you. Like I was in like 9th grade, and I started playing guitar and writing songs. I took acoustic guitar lessons in 3rd grade and quit after I learned like Ode to Joy. You know, it's like, this ain't for me. And then I figured out some Nirvana tunes and took it from there. So yeah, always it was like, I want that. My dad called it the frisons, which I found out is actually a real word. It's a French word. I thought he made it up. that tingle you get when the music hits you just right. And like, I want to be able to create that for someone someday. That's it.
It's the magic. Like that's it. The more that I thought about it, especially getting into music school, was like, we're at Hogwarts, man. Like we're learning to become musicians and control energy with these instruments and like emote these things through stationary objects. And I'm like, that's fucking magic. Like I don't care what anybody says. Like,
thing out of nothing was always something like that was like, still to this day, I love playing live. You know, you get that rush, but like really the victory for me is like, you finished that song and you birthed a thing that didn't exist. And then that's the real victory. Then getting to play it later, that's icing.
Mm-hmm. The creative process is one that you clearly enjoy. I feel like you take so much care in your songwriting, and it shows. Like, you have a really unique approach how you go about and write these songs, because it's not, and this is a big thing that I like talking about, especially like with the programs that we're putting together, is that you don't necessarily start with a genre. You don't start with like a style, and that allows you to create something truly unique that is very much an Adam Carter original. You know, like when you hear The Human Race, it is The Human Race. You can't really put one kind of thing on it or anything, you know, like you can't quite get it. It is just what it is. And that's a really important thing. So how do you go about approaching that? Like what goes on in the lab when it's time to get creative?
It's unconscious. You don't think. And I think that goes back to what I used to listen to. All of these albums, I know you're a big Bowie fan, and he was the same way. He would never release an album that sounded like the album before it, but it was all Bowie. And for me, it's like, if it's honest and it's coming from you, you can make it a funk tune, a folk tune, you can make it whatever you want, but it like, there should be some je ne sais quoi that's like, oh yeah, that nug is there. Yeah. And a lot of it, I think, was just a function of who I was playing with. Like, I'd always write a song on an acoustic guitar, but then it's like you get together with the guys and you're jamming it, and then it turns into another thing. And I've always been, I used to be in bands that were bands, and we were democratic in politics, and oh my God. And it was like, no, I enjoy playing with you people and I trust you. So here's my skeleton, and take it and let's just turn it into something. So a lot of how my songs have developed have been a function of who I was jamming them with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, really loved the progression of, because when I first saw The Human Race, it was just you and a guitar, and that was like a powerful thing. I was like, oh, good, Adam's playing some stuff. I think it was like one of Justina mine's like first dates.
Oh,
she was like, Adam,
or something.
Yeah, Adam's playing at Homegrown, and I was like, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And it was powerful. Like the fact that you were opening up for like a full band afterwards, and I felt so much more through your like it was very compelling. And I think that really is a testament of like why the songs are so good as an ensemble. You're able to get that with just you and a guitar, and there's enough there that when you start putting pieces together, it just adds to it, instead of, you know, like, oh, it's kind of halfway there and this and that, and then it changes into something else, right?
Well, thank you. You know, like your whole thing right now with MFile, you're talking about songwriting, and I'm sure you've talked about the fact that a song has to be a good song. When you peel away all of the bells and whistles and the bullshit, if there's no song there, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. You have to have a song, and then it doesn't matter what you do with it after that. And I always enjoyed like being able to do a solo show where it's just me and a guitar or me and a looper, and the songs are this way. And then it's like, oh, the guys are available. Let's play it as a 7-piece band with saxophones and keyboards. And the songs are the same, but now they're delivered in this way, and people are dancing instead of like sitting there with a coffee, you know? And I get a kick out of that. Yeah,
I loved, I've seen the full ensemble a few times with Bruder and Pamela and Tariq on saxophone, John the bassist. And
John's been playing with me for over a decade, but I've had a few drummers. David, who used to drum with Mother Tariqa.
Right.
Michel De Quevedo, who is a brilliant percussive wizard.
Yes.
Some shows we had Michel on congas and aux percussion, and we had Dave Gould drumming. Gould. And then I just leave the stage. When I get the 2 percussive guys there and we do a show, halfway through the set, I go leave the stage, order a drink, have a pee, and just give them like 10 minutes to just like make mad science. And that's my favorite part. Yeah, the more I play with other people and the more instruments on the stage, the less I want to play guitar. I want to play, but I want to leave more space for that magic to happen.
I think that's a really good kind of goal to have as like the architect of the band, because this is it's the human race is your project, and when you write the songs and bring it in, then they're kind of the accessories, right? And you call the shots and you say this and that, but it's never coming from a place of control. You're getting to put Lego pieces together and build like your ultimate band. You're building the vision, and you want to be able to like have the show that you would want to go see. You're writing the songs that you would want to hear, right? Like that's an awesome thing to be able to step back from your vision and just be like, shit, my band is killing. Like
I watched the Zyla cast you did. I don't know if it was a week ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No meaning. But something that jumped out with what you were saying during that was you're not just playing at a bar. You're creating an experience. And the people who come in, they are creating a space. And if everybody's having a good time, you've created an event, something special. You have to be there because it's this experience.
Yes.
And I think giving them, like writing some good songs that people connect with is important, and giving the musicians a chance to have fun with it and enjoy themselves when they're playing with you. People read that, and then they come into the space and they're on your team. They want to have a good time instead of being like, wow me.
Yeah.
This is, I remember a lot of this. I used to play in a prog metal band, and this is the posture, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I was so drawn to what you were doing with the belays and what Flat 5 was doing around the same time, because it was like they're creating a space for people to have a good time where it's okay to have fun and move, instead of standing there worried about how someone else is perceiving you.
Yeah.
And there used to be a lot of that at rock and metal shows.
It was boring.
Yes, it was.
Like it's
very boring.
Even if you manage to do the impossible and get 15 people to your gig, then they're just standing there and it becomes this like weird competition. And it was like, okay, this is wrong. Like we got to find a way to get that defensiveness, like put the guard down and disarm them before they even get settled. It was like, how do we go about creating a community? And obviously like the bars we were playing at and the venues were always a big proponent of that. And it was like a dual kind of thing. Like they would be, oh, this is the band, we want more of them, and kind of creating and cultivating that culture.
Yes.
Of, I want to be a part of this. And like if you're being dragged to a show and you've never been there before, like how many Baltimore house shows was it? Like people, you can tell and point out the ones that it's their first show, and they're just like,
they don't expect it walking in. There were shows we did there. Man, you're on stage jumping around. People are crowd surfing. People were losing their minds. And from the outside, it's just like, oh, here's a bar. Let's just go in and have a drink. And then people walk into that. And if they don't like it, fine, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, let's make room for someone who's really going to add to the evening.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody in there. You need space for the people who this is for, and having an idea of who this is for from the beginning, it puts, the vibe of the band, it puts the songwriting, it puts the themes for the show, because you gotta have a theme. It was like a kid's birthday party every time. And that was a big thing that started coming out a lot working with you, because you were very much about, let's do this. And that was always a favorite thing for me to do when we were in music school with like Post Downpour Squalling, when I was playing with like Bartek and Roni, Aaron Bowers, and all those other guys. So that was a really good, to be able to get the chance to work with you with the promotion side, which I think is really important, because you were always, event. What are we going to do? Let's have a bunch of glow sticks available and make it crazy. And the poster's cat themed. So you guys want to dress up like cats? Like, yeah.
You guys were the best with that. One of my favorite memories was post Baltimore. We did a show where you guys were making grilled cheese from the stage of Casbah and handing it out to people in the crowd, and they lost their fucking mind. Let's have to do that again post COVID, by the way.
No, it was a very special time.
Yeah, man. That gives something. One, it gives people something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But two, it solidifies that show in their memory. You know, it's like it's locked away in there, and it's like there's a connection, and it's like, yes, I remember the time where people dressed up like cats, or where Justine was doing the body painting at that Hollywood. And it was just like this added thing where people are like, were you at that show? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, no, the one with the cats. Yes, I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was always a really good strategy, because like it's real life viral in that way. Like it's the original virality of a show, where it's like, you know, people, it's 40 years later and people still talk about that show. Jim Morrison got arrested for whipping his dick out.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't want to go that far, but there is something there to that, where it's like, were you there that night?
Have done that.
Yeah.
Back in the old days when I was into like a lot of math rock, Hamilton was like a mecca for that in the early 2000s. Chord were one of my favorite bands, but also band Kitchens and Bathrooms that were all like crazy, spidery time signature math rock, and they would play like in their ditch, and the lead singer would be known. He'd just whip his dick out. Yeah, whatever. It's just what's happening. But I remember that
was interesting in the day.
Wild. And still, it wasn't like we built up to the fun we were having when you and I were playing on King William Street, because we were having a great time, but there still was only 20 people there at like the Underground or the Raven, or now I'm dating myself. The Raven, by the way, for all you listeners out there, the Raven is what Gallagher's was before it was Gallagher's.
Oh, wow.
I saw some bands there, man.
Rest in peace.
I saw Warsaw Pack. Yeah.
The sweat raining from the ceiling in a show like that would have yeah. Lee Reed is another just force of nature, that guy. How when he gets on, like, he's such a polite person when you're talking with him. You just like very like, oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you
intelligent, and you know, he works at McMaster. I don't mean to sell him out, but there was a show he did a little while ago where he was talking to me before the show, and he was like, this is weird, man. I've been doing this for 25 years. You know, I've had this job for however many years. All the people from my work decided they were going to come to this show tonight. And he's like, it's the mixing of worlds. It's like that Costanza sort of Seinfeld thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Man.
He was like a little bit on edge, because it's like, those are, you know, when he's on stage, he's possessed.
He is.
And I remember it was like a benefit for like the Pride thing that happened last summer or something.
Right.
And the cops came in that night, harassed people. And Lee Reed is on stage on fire. And I'm just imagining like the people that are there from his work who know Lee, who's probably amazing at his job and whatever, on stage, like inciting this fire.
Yeah.
That must have been weird for him.
It's like something comes down and injects him with like a political tornado.
Yeah.
And it's like the closest to like a modern Zach from Rage. You know, just that like there's something else behind the voice that's like pushing it forward and gives it this like and this edge and intensity.
As Lee would say, it's the realness.
Yeah.
it is the realness, you know, and
it's not a drop of dishonesty in how he performs, even though it is a performance. Like there's Workley and there's Stagely.
Yeah.
But Stagely isn't a liar. And that's a really important thing, because he wouldn't have such a long career doing exactly what he's doing if people smelled for a second that he was dishonest about anything he was talking about.
Exactly. He's just a super version of himself on stage.
Yes.
Which is, I think, what a lot of great artists are. It's like, it is coming from a space of real, but you on stage are the most amped up version of that. And when you're free and you can let that loose, that's when the magic happens.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of that, I played my first show last night in 6 months.
I saw that.
The Absence
On recent photos.
With Sarah Beatty and Wax Mannequin. Now, I have been a Wax Mannequin fan for 20 years.
That's a hell of a treat.
I've had the pleasure of playing with him a number of times over the recent years, and it blows my mind that this guy, you want to talk about like my weird songwriting, this guy inspired me right at the end of high school, where he was taking that idea of the show to the nth degree. He created a system in 2000 called Jimmy Points, where you would come to the show, and from the stage, he would ask you to do tasks or make something out of paper mache or do something weird, and he'd give you a stamp on this card. You get a stamp for coming, you get a stamp for completing tasks, and when you got out of line, he would gift you with a superpower. So I had sight for miles and electric fingers. And he built this mystique around what he was doing that sucked people in. And then when that got old, he reinvented himself and said, now I'm the president of indie rock. And he wore a leather jacket and he got a band and he went on stage and he just bled realness. And then he started putting a candle on his head and it would melt down him when he was doing his performance as a solo artist. This is a guy that has figured out how to engage with the audience and make them go, something special is happening here. And last night, he was playing his songs, which I love, and a lot of the people on King William Street, some of them were there for the show, but there's just a lot of people out.
Yeah.
And he's just leaning against that window we're playing from in the Absence stage. And in between songs, he's just riffing. And he's going off on Serb and Basic Income and raccoons and pulling out roots from his garden and psychedelics. And I'm just like, you don't even have to play another song. Just keep waxing poetic, because it's so entertaining and it is so real. And he is someone whose mind, he's such a creative soul that like the way he phrases something will stick with you forever. And that was a huge inspiration for me. When I'm writing songs, it's like, no, how do I give it an angle that is like, it's true, it's real, but it's not the same old shit that's been said before.
Right.
It's got a bit of wonk in there. Even if I'm talking about something serious, like I got a song about worried about getting hit by my bicycle. On my bicycle when I'm driving around, right? And it's like, fuck my mom up the first time that she heard me play that, because she's like, ah! But also, my tongue is in my cheek. And it's fun and it's memorable, and it's like, you got to do that. A lot of artists take themselves really seriously. They think they're the shit, and maybe you are, but you have to connect with people in some way that's real.
Yeah, there's got to be a level of you're still a person.
Yeah.
Right? Like and it's a product that you still need to be selling in some way. And that's just like one of the things on the checklist that you should have in every song, or at least try to, you know, like what's that line that's going to hit you and you're going to like Hammer of the Gods, you know, Led Zeppelin managed to steal that from like 2,000 years of Vikings.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, Led Zeppelin were the masters of theft. You know, no one did it better than them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like Vikings are just like, for real? Like now people think of these guys? Whenever they say Hammer of the Gods, like that was us. That was that.
Oh yeah, man.
So, about the let's circle back around to a bit of the promoting and some of your checklists for like let's make the show an event. Let's make, like, you were always really good on the poster art and the theme and all these things. So let's kind of break down some of the process of how you would approach, okay, now we got a band, this is happening, what do we do next?
Yeah. That step right there was the hardest part. Like when I was booking Homegrown, I think I probably booked 400 events in 2 years.
You're a busy boy.
And you're getting all these emails from these bands. And it's like, who do you book together? And for me, it's like, okay, say you got an anchor band. You got a band that's really great, that's on tour, they're here on this night. The most important thing is if you're going to book a support act or 2 support acts, you got to choose bands that are going to gel with that band. Obviously, you don't want to book like a death metal band with like an indie pop band.
Yeah.
But
I have seen those shows, hilariously enough.
Yeah. But the one thing that I found was really great, being in a place where I got to see all these younger artists and I knew the artists that were older, is like, how can we take this crowd of like 22-year-olds whose music gels with this crowd of like 35-year-olds and blend? And so the thing that was really great about the belays, or the alto belays at that time, when I met Johnny Nails, when I met you guys back in the day, was, I had my hand in a few different pots. You guys had this cool community from school and just doing your thing. And then I knew all these hippies from like the Come Together Music Festival that were doing like jam band funk, little different than you guys. But it's like, there are crowds here, 2 separate crowds. Let's put them together and see what happens. And then there was this like cross-pollination, this weird like scientific like do. And the next thing you know, all the fans of the alto belays are taking flat 5 and vice versa. And you've just doubled that drop.
It was an insane, like a new scene was created out of that stuff.
And then the bands started hugging each other and being like, "We love you guys." And it was just a good feeling.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I was concerned with booking shows, and I gave everybody shit for it. I probably gave you guys shit for it, although you weren't the worst offenders, and you could magically pull it off in ways others weren't. It's like, stop playing every month. Stop playing twice a month.
Oh, yeah. We were so bad. I every single time it's like, oh yeah, we got this gig booked, blah, blah, blah. Put it in your calendar. It's like, what are you doing? You guys, like,
you gotta make it special. So I would be on the phone, or I would be on the Facebox with these bands, and they'd be like, okay, let's do a show. And I'm like, great, when are you playing? And they're like, well, we got 2 shows this month and 2 shows next month. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's do it 4 months down the road. Don't book anything between now and then, and we'll make it big.
Yeah.
And the bands that I continued to work with, for the most part, they got that. Like, there needs to be communication, not only between bands in the scene, but in between promoters at different venues too.
Yeah.
Because if I book you guys at Baltimore House or Homegrown, and we got a big show plan, and the next thing you know, I don't want to call anybody out, but someone from another club goes and books you guys the week before, you've just fucked me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this show, but
yeah, we swear here. That's okay.
what it is. It's like, no, we had an event and now it's watered down.
Yeah.
And especially just pre-COVID, people were hurting for cash. So you have a limited amount of funds to spend on a show per month. And when you get in a position where people have to choose between 2 shows for the same band at different clubs, that is not helping anyone. That's hurting everyone. So I think that to me was the starting point. It's like, we need to get a couple bands that gel, bring in from a few different areas, make sure they're not overplaying. And then I would like throw on some tunes, smoke a little doobie, and mess around and come up with like a poster or something. And from there, sometimes a theme popped out of it, and sometimes it would be like, sometimes you just make a weird poster and people share that and they're like, that's crazy. And like, it gets it gets some awareness of the show. And then sometimes you do everything right and the show still flops, and then you scrape yourself up off the floor and you do it again.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's a lesson to be learned in it, and sometimes it's just really, like, who knows? Like, there were so many times where it was just like, this should have went well, and it just didn't. And you can't really take those things personally, you know? Like, maybe when I was a teenager, and it was like, fuck, this is supposed to be our biggest show ever.
Yeah,
and,
well,
you know, sometimes you play to an empty room, but you still play. And you still play like it's full, because anybody that happens to be in there is going to remember that show.
Oh, yeah. You know? Going back to like that first time I saw Wax Mannequin, I was in high school and I'm old. So I had grade 13. So I'm 19 years old in high school, going to bars on the weekends for the first time. And I saw Wax Mannequin play the Casbah solo to like 5 people. Here we are 20 years later, and I'm a super mega fan.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the show. He played it out. He got me. And there were only 5 people there. But 20 years later, here I am.
Yeah. Lifelong fan.
Oh, yeah. Love the weird. But I don't know, man. The world we're in now, everything I just talked about, at least for the foreseeable future, almost doesn't matter, because you can't pack a club. You can't get like you're sharing the sweat and you're hugging each other and everybody's just, and it's like, oh, we can't do that. So how do we reinvent the wheel so that it can still be this special thing in a different way? And I think right now, everybody is scrambling to figure that out. There's no clear-cut answers.
I remember, like, probably the week before everything shut down, and I had sent you that message, and I was like, hey, like, how do we figure out this problem with promoting shows?
Yeah.
And, like, I swear it wasn't me. I didn't do this. I didn't do it. It was not my fault. But how funny is that? Or it's like, we got to solve this problem of like, how do we get outside of the same thing that's been going on for years and it's starting to not work?
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, boom, this happens. And obviously everybody is now picking their socks up and learning how to do live streams and videos. And there's so much content happening on that end, which is awesome. It does not replace shows. But it's the only thing that we have right now until we can figure out what the fuck to do next.
Yes.
But that brings me to the next important point is your experience with filming and videography and everything like that, because that came in handy for you. You know, like you were like, okay, I'm going to start making a video and do a performance in my living room, try and do one every couple days, whatever. One of them actually went a little viral with the Justin Trudeau speaking moistly video.
Got 17,000 hits in like a week.
Yeah, that's really fucking good.
It was our mutual friend, Jessie Gollum. The night that came out, she was like, tomorrow you got to do this song for your song of the day.
Yeah. And
I hadn't heard it, and I played it, and I'm like, okay, I'll learn it, because I was taking requests, and I got it out just as the algorithms were kicking.
Yeah.
Huffington Post featured me in an article with 2 other people who covered it, and all my shit lit up.
Yeah.
And I'd never had it happen quite like that before. And then this is the sad part. All my shit's getting hit, and it starts to peter off over a month or 2. And now I'm back to baseline. I'll release a video on Facebook. I'll get 1,000 views. Mm-hmm. On YouTube, maybe I'll get a couple 100,000 if I'm lucky. Doesn't matter anymore, because my hit was 17,000. So now if I get 1 view or if I get 1,000 views, doesn't matter. I don't got my dopamine. I need more than 17,000 now. Dopamine. And I'm chasing the dragon.
Right.
And I'm not really chasing it, but like it just.
I know what you mean though. Like,
you know, you have
that number
videos that got mad hits, right?
Yeah.
And then the next one has to get you more to give you the same amount. It's like a stupid analogy to capitalism. It's like, we need more every year or else we fail.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
not what
working.
it's about. That's not what songwriting's about or any of that.
No.
But that is what it's about now. Like the whole COVID thing, it's like content. And I know SoCan will pay you a certain amount if you got a certain amount of streamers.
Yeah.
And I know even before COVID, if we're talking about whatever labels are around or booking agents, they go to your, I know because I was one, you go to your Facebook, it's like, oh, do you have any likes? What's your engagement? And that's used as a metric to sort of gauge a success of a band. And I hate that.
It sucks that it's because it's vanity metrics.
It is.
And it's like something concrete that they think this is definitive. So
and so don't buy likes, because I can tell within 14 seconds whether your likes are real or purchased. And don't brag about being number one on the Reverb Nation Hamilton list. Off Reverb Nation, don't mention it anywhere, because as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay, this band, they don't know what's up yet. Because that is a vanity bullshit, always has been, sort of like, oh, buy our premium. Look, you're number one in your area. It's like, no. And it sucked a lot of bands in over the years. I still see that popping up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's a good system, I guess. It's still working all these years.
I would rather go to your Facebook page or your YouTube and watch a video, even if it's only got 40 hits, than go see something on Reverb Nation with all these fake comments.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think a really important point that came out through the story of the viral thing is that the one boosted up everything else.
Yes.
So because you were already curating videos and content and everything, that one that does it, now you're in the system, you've done it before, and more people are likely to be shown your stuff. So it's like you need, I mean, there's the quality aspect. You're already taking care of that. So now at the quantity level, when you're like, I'm putting out songs and performances all the time, so that the more there is chance that someone's going to fall in my bear trap and become my new best friend.
Yes. That was the only thing that kept me sane for all of this. Like, I was doing a song a day, and then
it was crazy that the
blistering
pace.
Song every other day. In the last week, I've been a bit down and I've done like a song, but I'm going to get back to doing a song a day. It just kind of became work. You know how things become work. So I took a break. But the key there is live streaming 9 times out of 10 looks like a potato, sounds like crap. So I was like, I have all of this gear because I film live bands, I film music videos, and it's like, I'm going to get a set, I'm going to set up some lights, and I'm going to record really high quality stuff. And instead of just always posting these live streams that look like crap, I'll give you one song and it'll be really good. And then over the course of time, you could sit down now and watch 2 hours of me playing on a stream, but it's not live. I've color graded it, I've mixed it, and I think that really helped me because most people were doing live streaming. They'd sit down,
it stands out big time,
and they play for an hour, and it was great, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, well, because again, this is something where it's like, okay, radically shifting the landscape, and everyone's just scrambling to grab onto the technology that hasn't really been explored by them yet.
Yes.
So having the one up on everybody else was just knowing about setting up like a really good shot.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're testing your equipment and knowing how to test and like get your levels right and make sure that it's not picking up all room sound.
Unplug the fridge, turn off the fans.
Yeah. Like it's all these little things that people wouldn't necessarily think about until afterwards where they're like, okay, something's not right. Like this could sound better or this could look better.
Yeah.
So what is it? You know, and it's like there's a few things that obviously the Melodic Pixel media, your experience with all of that and starting that company and everything, like you were basically like sitting back for a week watching everybody get desperate and you're just like, all right, hold my beer. Like I gotta do something here. Because
the thing that really stood out to me was that, see, the internet was supposed to be this level playing field for musicians. Mm-hmm. It is not.
No.
And as more and more, it's not. Like, it's just more for the people that have the machine behind them and less for everybody else. But as soon as COVID happened, I started seeing major label artists shooting shit videos on their phones because they have money, they have resources, but they can't bring in their team to get it done. Right. So all of a sudden, my videos have a production quality that is dwarfing people who have 1 million+ followers. And that was the real sort of level playing field for once in my life in terms of being able to produce something of quality.
Right.
It's just like, I have the means here, I can do this thing, and even if I don't get the views, I am now world-class quality compared to somebody who, they would just pay someone money to do it, but they can't do that now. And right. That, I think, is a big component of being successful as a band. It doesn't have to be one person doing it all. But like, if you can understand the background, like if you can understand setting your stage volume, if you can understand having a merch table that is designed.
Yeah, not just slapping it down.
This is where you want to come check things out. Instead of being like, meet me in the back of my van after, you know, if you have someone in the band that understands composition, so that like if you're going to shoot your own photos or if you're going to design your own artwork, which you guys did with the Alto Belays,
yeah,
it was interesting. It was something that you wanted instead of it looking like it came out of MS Paint.
Right.
Because there's people that still do that. They just don't necessarily know. And it's not a prerequisite. Like, if you have money, you can hire people. And please hire people, because people need to hire me. But at the same time, you're a musician. And if you're going to exist in these days, you have to be, or have people around you that are designers, sound engineers, booking agents, web guys. Because it's expected now.
You got to wear many, many hats.
Yeah.
Like just you become indispensable more so the more skills that you have, at least even a basic understanding of. Because at the base level, checking off a few of these things goes so far.
Yeah. Like
doing the bare minimum for your sound. It's like, okay, this is actually tolerable. Like, I can sit through and watch this whole video of you performing because it doesn't sound like it was recorded in a fucking coffee can. You know, like.
Yeah, and part of that is like, I'm lucky because even though right now I'm not incredibly wealthy and I'm not really working, I have 25 years of collecting little pieces of gear to be able to do what I want. So I have a condenser microphone plugged into a board. You were showing people your little board. I have this one, similar one. And it's like, I know how to plug it into a DAW and get a good signal. And I may not be a world-class audio engineer, but you don't have to be to make it sound decent for people coming out of a laptop or their phone or whatever.
Right.
Just have a basic understanding, and you have a $200 microphone, you know, and a $300 board. And Dave Grohl gave a keynote. Dave Grohl, he knows what he's talking about. He was telling people the same thing. He's like, listen, no one taught me how to play drums. No one taught me how to do any of these things. I just did it. And that was sort of like how I started out in a band, playing all ages shows, burning CDs and making our own artwork and handing them out.
Oh, yeah.
No one taught me how to do any of that. We just did it, and we failed upward. You know, you get better at things as you go along. And so, like, a lot of people are waiting. They're like, as soon as we're discovered, as soon as somebody decides they want to get us into the club. I was so uncool playing prog rock for years because it wasn't hip in Hamilton, a punk town. And I was like, that's fine. I don't need to plug into this scene. Then we created our own scene at Homegrown, at Baltimore House. Next thing you know, Brody's calling me up, Jim at Corktown, and they're like, hey, bring that scene here. And I'm like, no, it's my scene.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't there, so you can cry about it and feel like you're left out, or it's like you can do what you do to like create something new. And like that ripped my skull open. Like we built a thing. It was awesome. And it was a communal effort. And still to this day, I get people that are like, oh, I miss Homegrown. Those shows. Oh, the Baltimore House. There's never going to be anything like that again. People are going to be talking about that 20 years down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's like, where's the next one? Who's the next crew? You know, they got to do it. Like, I'd love to be a part of it, but I don't have like $300,000 to put down to buy a fucking venue.
And what happens too is there's burnout, right? After so much building and putting in time to develop things that I did, I don't have the energy anymore. Even if all the clubs were open, I was doing, 4 to 10 shows a week. We would double up and do early shows and late shows. And then I was doing like a big show a month. I was doing a big show every other month. Yeah. And like just pre-COVID, it was like I was doing a quarterly show. Really great acts, really good show. But I'm not just booking for the sake of booking anymore because it's too much work and I'm spent. Someone else has to do something.
Yeah.
And I think just pre-pandemic, you and a bunch of people in the scene were aware of what was going on in like semi-private spaces.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do special shows every once in a while in this old church that now people live in. Yeah. We're going to rent it from them. We're going to do a bring your own booze thing. Everybody's going to respect this event and it's going to be a blast. And it's not the gatekeeper being the bar anymore. You hire a door guy, you hire a sound guy, you set up the stage yourselves. But in the end, people are happier to come and bring their own booze. Mm-hmm. People are happier to spend $25 on a ticket. You got enough money to pay the bands, and it's an event. And I still believe once things peter out, this is going to be, we're going a little back underground, a little more DIY. There's a few spaces in town right now that are primed for it. I'm actually going to be doing, I'm going to do a plug here. If anyone knows Daphne Reed of the Satisfied Customers, Daphne Reed is one of these people that lives in an old church now. And she owns it. Her and her partner live there. And it's beautiful. And Daphne not only happens to be an amazing musician, but a network genius, like in terms of computers, a sound person. So we have a small crew of people that are going to be doing really high quality streaming broadcasts where it's like, Daphne's got the sound, I've got the cameras. We're going to bring in bigger acts that people are dying to see and try and get people to make some donations. Yeah. We're not all getting rich, but it's an experiment. But eventually, we can have 20 or 30 people come into this venue and socially distance and pay a premium for it. It's like there's a $40 ticket for this killer band. It's intimate. Bring some booze, social distance, and then it's special.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think like no one's going to get rich off that, but as a stopgap, I think that that's the answer, especially if you can have some interaction. Like if the band's on stage and there's ways for people that are streaming to be able to interact, whether it's 15% of the set list maybe is reserved for requests that people buy tickets in advance. And with your premium ticket, you get a song request and they pick the top 5 requests and they're going to do them. Or they're going to give shout outs. You're going to buy a premium ticket and someone's got a birthday, you got an event coming up, you want to just like say, hi, Mom. It's like premium ticket. Stop.
Finally, make sure that the people who are asking you, it's my cousin's birthday. Cousin, say happy birthday to my cousin. It's like, stop. You're spilling all over the pedals. Like, get away. Like, this is the perfect antidote for that shit. That's that's one of the things I do not miss.
But
it's my birthday.
Oh yeah. Can I sit in with you guys? Can I play your guitar for a song? No, you cannot.
Never. No.
I think the big thing that's missing, and there is no answer yet, but why am I going to watch a live streaming event that doesn't look and sound amazing when I can go on YouTube and I can watch 4K HD, beautifully mixed, multicam, 2-hour concerts of any band in the world for free?
Yeah.
The answer is you have to be able to interact in some way. You have to be able to feel as though you are a part of it, because that is the magic that we had at the clubs. People wanted to come because they wanted to be a part of it. If you have any answers, shoot me a message, because my brain's always ticking with it.
If you want to learn more about any of the topics discussed on today's episode, or if you'd like to expand your horizons so you can make the most amount of impact with your music, please be sure to check us out at mfile.ca.